Well, okay, John. Well, we can stop patting the Bengals on the back a little bit because, like you said, a team that has been criticized for limited internal resources. You felt like, yeah, you're negotiating these two blockbuster deals, but could you do a little bit more in outside free agency? Could you do a little bit more to bolster other areas of their roster, namely offensive guard? So what maybe next is the question. We do have a free agent profile we're going to squeeze in at the end of the program here, but I do want to say this, that, and it may be an indictment of the free agency, the outside free agency class as a whole. I know Albert Breer of SI famously said that, this is kind of a weaker class than normal. And so you've seen, after a couple of big days, you've seen a real quieting of the market, namely at some positions the Bengals may be looking at, corner, a veteran corner, that is. And then, of course, guard. A couple of guards went early, and then now you still have Tevin Jenkins lingering out there, Brandon Scherff lingering out there, and Dalton Reisner and others that are still kind of hanging out there. So obviously the offensive guard spot with Alex Kappa leaving and then signing with the Raiders is a big hole that the Bengals need to fill. They need to provide at least some semblance of competition for Cordell Volson on the other side. And then, of course, they've got 6 picks to play with in the draft. I don't want to put words in your mouth by saying but we just mentioned that the draft may be a little bit defensive heavy and say Al Golden draft and develop. So what may be next for the Cincinnati Bengals in outside free agency as things have kind of quieted down after those the first week, really?
Well, follow the money, follow the math. That's always been the case when trying to project this team's next moves. If you have the foresight to kind of see where the cap space is going to be, you could tell that they're going to have around over $30 million in cap space once we have the final details with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But they already know their cap space situation. So T and Jamar's deals are going to free up at least $10 million in space. I feel pretty confident in saying that. As of right now, we know that they have about $23 million in space. So say that they have $33 million in space. Obviously, the Bengals like to hoard cap space in the offseason. Not that much. So if they extend Trey to anything, they're going to give him a little bit raise, and this cap hit's going to increase a little bit. Probably isn't going to be a full $10 million worth. So, but even if it is, that gets you back down to $24 million or $23 million, right? That's still a little bit too much compared to where they usually are. Once you get to like 18 or 17 million, then you can basically say that they're done in free agency. But I'm going to say that Trey's extension, if it does happen, is only going to eat up about at most 6 million more. So they're back down to 27. I think that's enough room for whatever the best guard available is on the market, or a guard, and then some other type of veteran on the defensive side of the ball. And it really could be any position at this point because they all need help. I think they really were interested in a linebacker, but the market there was significantly more expensive than they anticipated. I think that they're still interested in seeing what the cheapest, most effective defensive lineman veteran that they can find, and that guy may be out there for another couple of weeks, but 100% they're going to sign a guard. Like I'm putting that in pen. There's no reason why they would cut Alex Kappa and not sign anyone to replace him. The signing of Cody Ford was to compete with Cordell Volson and a rookie at left guard or right guard, depending on what position that they decide to put there. But they would not cut Alex Kappa before free agency without signing someone to pencil in at starter at right guard. That is going to happen. It's likely. I think the favorite's going to be the guy that we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes, but that's going to happen. It's just a matter of if they do something else alongside with that. And I think they're going to barely have enough space to potentially make it work, but you may see them enter the full draft mode with around 20 million in space.
I, oddly enough, think the favorite may be not the person we are going to profile. And unless I'm not caught up with things to the absolute minute, Will Hernandez is a guy who has experience at both guard positions. And John, the Bengals love to maximize the roster at the offensive line with guys who have positional versatility, be it guard tackle, be it playing both guard positions, guard center, all of that, both tackle positions. They love to maximize the roster with that sort of thing. And Will Hernandez is an effective player. He's a proven player. He's had some injury stuff, so he may be more on the affordable side of things. I know a lot of people are enamored with Tevin Jenkins, and the Bengals flirted with him. He reportedly went to Seattle Monday and left without a deal there. So I think teams are a little bit scared of the medicals there. I think things would have to make a lot of financial sense for the Bengals to do that and to splash twice at guard. But I think Will Hernandez is a guy that fits the mold of, okay, look, he could start at right guard, or if we draft another guy that we think is a plug and play starter, then we can kick him over to compete with Cordell Volson on the left side, that sort of thing. So I think that makes a lot of sense. That is not the free agent profile we're going to do, but just from, again, hearkening back to Bengals past preferences and trademarks and all that kind of stuff, that's one guy I would see maybe being a signing a little bit down the road.
Yeah, I think amongst the top options, he might be the youngest, at least in terms of experience, aside from maybe Dalton Reisner, who for whatever reason just never signs with the team in March.
Mercenary, dude.
I really don't understand what's going on with that dude. But no, Will Hernandez makes a lot of sense. Very stout in pass protection, like you said, has played both sides. I think he kind of resurrected his career a little bit with Arizona, and the only reason why he's still out there right now is because he tore his ACL in October. And you may not know what his medical is at the moment. It's why you're going to get a discount. But I think the Bengals would definitely have interest in him, if not for someone else.
Well, that's someone else. Let's get to it, and that is, because we're coming up on time here, 2025 free agent profile, Brandon Scherff. And this is a guy who is long in the tooth, but he has been a largely effective player, a guy that I think most people are going, why is this guy not signed yet? I think there's a little bit of things going on both sides. Maybe Scherff is biding his time, looking for the exact right place to land. I've got some stuff here to talk about, but here he is. So at college, he was a tackle, and we'll look at this here. He moves well in space, and a guy that just does a lot of good things. He's a stout player. He is a little bit of that throwback guy. Most recently with the Jaguars, was drafted by Washington. He's 6'5", 315. He's entering his 11th season. He is 33, going to be 34 in December. That is obviously what teams are looking at there. He went to Iowa, played tackle there, and was a star player there. And then, of course, like I said, former college tackle, former number 5 overall pick from Washington. He was a 5-time Pro Bowl player from 2016 through 2017, and then again 2019 through 21, All Pro in 2020, and then he signed with the Jaguars before the 2022 season. He's a leader. He's been a team captain. He could be a mentor to a lot of good players. He's experienced. He's had a high level play throughout most, if not his entire career. Unfortunately, he's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. The Bengals need to shore up those, that interior for the long term. He's good at blitz pickups and picking up stunts. And then the big question is, what kind of contract would you give a guy who is going to be 34 in the season? Now let's look at this again. There he is, just out. He paves the way for a big play here. I'm gonna show that to you again. Hold on, let me go back one sec. Let's go back. He is on the left side here, and just paves the way, and then that's him out in space there. Kind of gives a little nudge there, and then this is him most recently picking up another blocker. Let's go back to that for a sec, because this is a problem. I slowed it down, but one more time, let's go back. Engages the one guy, they do, yep, and then there you go. And then here's the legend, Kirk Cousins. Here he is going up against Gerald McCoy. And just kind of, McCoy is a borderline Hall of Fame guy, and just kind of gets him out of the way. There you go. Clean pocket for Cousins. And this one I love. He's kind of, look at this, pick up the blitz. Bye. Just play. Is that Reggie Nelson? It might be. Yeah. And just plants him. And then again, another nice play that happens here. Here he is out in space. Doesn't get great contact, but that defender was absolutely not wanting any part of that. So one more. Let's look at it. This is my favorite here. Again, McCoy, and then here he is right here. Engages number 90 briefly, and then sees the blitz and just goes over there and takes out the blitzing safety. Here he is out in space. paving the way there. So, I mean, as if I needed to share really any clips on him because his tape speaks for itself. But again, a lot of those are in a Washington uniform. A lot of those were Kirk Cousins in a Washington uniform. So it's a little bit going back in the past. I did like that clip of the Jaguar where he was with the Jaguars, picked up that, that other lineman there as they traded off. But a guy that could, at least for a year, maybe 2 years, cement that right guard spot, mentor someone else you bring in via the draft, and, bring some locker room leadership along the way.
It is incredible how Iowa just continues to just pump out offensive linemen. They develop athletes like no other, and it's why a lot of them last a long time in the NFL. I believe Riley Reif went to Iowa, if I'm not mistaken, and he obviously lasted 10 years in the NFL and spent maybe the last one with the Cincinnati Bengals. Something that I didn't realize with Brandon Scherff until maybe a couple days ago is that there is a connection here. Scott Peters was a consultant with Bill Callahan with Washington while Brandon Scherff was obviously on the team. So I think there is a level of familiarity between the Bengals offensive line coach and definitely aside, maybe not the best because Trent Williams was also part of that Washington team, but the second best offensive lineman during the Bill Callahan days when he was in Washington. Bill Callahan now coaches the offensive line for the Titans. The Titans signed Kevin Zeidler, so they don't really have an opening at guard for Scherff to go back to his former coach. But I don't know how connected and close Peters was as a consultant to a star player for Washington, but I think there is a connection there, and I think that's why there is probably interest here. And I think with Scherff, who is 33, he can kind of bide his time because I'm sure there's a demand for him. I think the Eagles are also kind of in on him because they lost Mekhi Becton at right guard. And obviously right guard is the only position he's ever played. So I can't imagine teams are going to ask him to play left guard. But yeah, if you're 33, you've obviously made enough money to be comfortable and you're not going to command anything more than what you made last year. I think his market was probably around like 9 or 10 million. I think the Kevin Zeidler deal sets a good benchmark for him as well. But a place where you think that, I'm in an offense where obviously we're going to score a lot of points. I'm going to be relied on in pass protection. That's the best part of his game left. He used to be a dominant run blocker, which is why teams have a lot of confidence in moving him to guard. That's not really part of his game anymore, but he is incredibly still stout in pass protection. But the main reason why I think he's going to be the Bengals' top target here, and maybe there's already been interest in communication out there, is because he had trouble staying healthy in Washington. But for the last 3 years at Jacksonville, he's yet to miss a game. So for a player who's obviously on the older side and the other side of 30, you don't have necessarily those durability concerns, at least from recency. So if there's any issue about his age, at least that part you can say it's not like Tevin Jenkins, where the main reason why Tevin Jenkins isn't signed yet is because of his medical, because teams are really scared of that back injury that's haunted him for years. At least Scherff has proven to overcome that. So I think all of that combined makes him just the most logical fit here.
17 games in the regular season in the last 3 years. Took the words out of my mouth, so I don't have to expand on that. The Ohio 513, I assume this is about Brandon Scherff. How many teams has that fool played for?
This is his number one hater, actually.
Since you don't need him, he's played for 2 in 10 years. So I know a lot of other players who've played for more teams in that span. So, and this is a guy who's played at a high level. I think it's more biding his time. What contract makes sense? What destination makes sense? You think he may be the top target? I can see that. But again, the lack of flexibility of putting him left or right. I see some other people talking about Cody Ford. I mean, if you're comparing even a long in the tooth, Brandon Scherff to Cody Ford, I mean, the pedigree is a lot different. I mentioned the five Pro Bowls, etc. And like you pointed out, again, I don't need to expand further on it. The not missing a game the last 3 years, that I was going to say that, and I found that very, very interesting. Oddly enough, the Pro Bowl years is when he was, when he was missing games and stuff. So kind of an ironic thing there. But a guy that I think brings a lot of value, not only on the field, but again, he's been a team captain, locker room leader, can mentor young guys if you want to draft and develop. Yeah,
and I think the reason why they haven't actually signed a guard yet is because I think that they have been keeping tabs on the entire situation. Obviously, Will Hernandez is still there, Reisner is still there, Scherff is still there. I think any one of those 3 can easily fit and plug and play and just be your solution for this year. there hasn't been any movement there at all. And obviously, and still Tevin Jenkins is still out there. So I think teams are really gun shy and they have cold feet and they want to see which team makes the first move. So they're using this time, obviously, to hammer things out with Trey. There could already be an offer out there for Scherff and letting him just kind of take his time to decide. And maybe they want to move in once they do get things squared away with Trey. Again, not the greatest process. You should be able to you shouldn't have to be stretched this thin, but I refuse to believe that they're just giving up on guard. Like, they will sign someone that they feel confident can start.
Proactive versus reactive, John. You know that.